Prepare thyself well, Dragon Warrior. Thy most challenging quest ever awaits.
One of the biggest game series of all time. A game that changed an entire genre. Dragon Quest. Yeah, and I'm also copying Pat Max's video. Because I wanted to do it too, because it's funny. Now, there wasn't a ton of ports and remakes and stuff. More than I actually thought there would be, but it's not a crazy amount. Now let's start where it all began. Made by Yuji Horii and artwork done by Kuri Toriyama. The original Dragon Quest was released for the Famicom on May 27th, 1986. Inspired by the likes of Wizardry and Ultima, you play as a mysterious warrior. You're told by the King of Alefgard that the princess along with the Orbs of Light was stolen. So, get to it. Okay, Dragon Quest is over. And in 1998, it was localized for Western market under the new name Dragon Warrior. This is due to copyright issues with the name at the time. The NES version actually has a lot of enhancements over the Famicom version, like better sprites, better walking animation, and actually a save feature instead of having to use passwords. Now, the game did not do nearly as good as it did in Japan, so if you subscribe to Nintendo Power magazines, you would actually get a free copy of Dragon Warrior.
Get ready for the biggest offer in history from Nintendo!
Get a free Dragon Warrior game pack when you subscribe to Nintendo Power. A free game pack worth $40 plus 12 big issues of scorching power tips and wicked video maps for just $15.
Use that!
Plus an explorer's handbook to help you master the dragons and knights, skeletons and slime. But act now, supplies are limited. Call 1-800-341-3000 for your free Dragon Warrior game pack and 12 big issues of Nintendo Power. Just $15. Call now!
I wonder why Dragon Quest failed in the States. Now, the Nintendo Power copy is actually a different version than what originally came out. Only big difference is the battle text being changed from thy hit decreased by 1 to thy hit points decreased by 1. Luckily, the text is actually on the back of the box, so you can tell which revision you have. This is an MSX, specifically the MSX2. And we have Dragon Quest on it. It's basically the Famicom version, but with a worse scrolling effect and less detailed sprites. But this does have brighter colors, so I actually do like how this one looks, just not moving. After it was released for the MSX2, 1 month later it was also ported to the original MSX, even though the MSX2 is backwards compatible with the original MSX, so I'm not sure why they just made two different versions instead of just the MSX version, but basically the same version, but with more muted colors and a way worse scrolling effect. However, this is the only Dragon Quest 1 game that has a monster viewer in it. Yeah, if you hold down all these keys at once while the game boots up, you get to see all the monsters. That's pretty sick. Our first remake is actually a dual remake of Dragon Quest 1 and Dragon Quest 2. Remade for the Super Famicom and using Dragon Quest 5 as a base engine. Besides the huge graphical upgrade, the game actually has a lot of quality of life improvements. The hero can carry multiple weapons and has a storage system for its items. Being able to walk to the stairs instead of having to use a menu action. A small amount of redesigns for the dungeons. The game's balance has also been tweaked to give you more experience points and gold upon defeating an enemy, as well as decreasing the amount of experience you need to level up. Alright, now let's talk about the Satellaview. So the Satellaview is a peripheral for the Super Famicom. It's kind of like a radio station in the way that you would tune in at a specific time to play a game. I'm skipping a lot of details here, but there's so many videos about the subject if you want to learn more about it, which I really do recommend. Dragon Quest was one of those games in the set schedule, split into 4 episodes, which aired during the year of 1996. And just because some of those games you had to play at a specific time, a lot of these games are actually lost. But thankfully, Broadcast Satellite Dragon Quest, or BS Dragon Quest, We still have the ROM 4, so you can still play it, along with the original footage as it was being broadcasted. It's the Super Famicom remake, but with an orchestrated soundtrack, narration, and voice acting.
偉大なる勇者ロトの血を引く者よ。今こそ雨と太陽が合わさる時じゃ。さあ、雨雲の杖と太陽の石を。
As well as a lot of changes to the game, monsters now drop items, and you are able to find happiness medals. When collected, the player score increases. There are also a handful of new events that happen while playing. Both Dragon Quest I and Dragon Quest II were both remade again for the Nintendo Game Boy. This being a black cartridge, it was made to be used for both the original Game Boy and the Game Boy Color. There was actually quite a lot of text changes to the game. A lot of dialogue was shortened and was made easier to understand, which loses a bit of the charm compared to the other releases. It also changed Eldrick's name to Lodo to match the Japanese name. It also has a unique opening cutscene that is only in this game alone. Other than that, it's basically the Super Famicom upgrades, but on a Game Boy. Boom, culture shift. Cell phones are in, and with new phones, new games, Dragon Quest. 2004 Dragon Quest Remake. Like the other remakes, it makes more quality of life improvements, better menus and UI, a world map, and an indicator to know if there's something underneath you or not. The game also got a huge graphical redesign, and I like it a lot. Hope nothing bad happens. And a full 10 years later, this version was finally released worldwide in 2014. This is also the first time that Palette Territories got an official way to play the original game. The game's text is also reverted back to old-timey speak, and Lodo being changed back to Eldrick. You can still play these versions on Android and iOS today. And now we are at our last remake for 3DS and PS4. See the quotation marks in remake? Because it's literally just the 2004 mobile game, but with redrawn sprites. That's it. It's ugly. It's so ugly. I hate it so much. The characters and monsters got redrawn, so they constantly clash with the 16-bit areas. I actually do prefer how the monsters look. They look really good, and since the game is like 80% battling, it's good. But if it was only the monsters redrawn and not the characters, this game would be so good. Like, easily recommend. But it's gross. No one wants to play this. If any game deserves to have a monster viewer in it, it's definitely this one, not the MSX version. Now we got the pure ports. 0 changes. It's just one game being copied and pasted. You wanna know what the Nintendo Wii is really good at? Holy shit. Due to this revelation discovery, there was a lot of old game compilations on the Wii. To celebrate the 25th anniversary of the series, the Dragon Quest 25th Anniversary Collection was released. It has 6 games. The Famicom versions of 1, 2, and 3, and the Super Famicom versions of 1, 2, and 3. That stinks. But the cool part isn't about the games, it's about stuff surrounding the games. There's concept art, you can view the game boxes, there's a super cool opening, and it also came with like a whole bunch of physical stuff, like a guidebook, a pouch, and a little mini medal. Look at that. In 2016, Nintendo released the NES Classic Mini and the Famicom Classic Mini. Both versions have different games depending on which region you got it from. Neither of these have Dragon Quest, but release of a special Golden Famicom Mini featuring games from Shonen Jump brand. And you know what's not Shonen Jump? Dragon Quest. Oh, stick it in, I guess. Now Dragon Quest kind of stands out because this is all anime games, but I assume it's on here just because like Dragon Ball Z, Kori Toriyama. But I'm not complaining. I kinda am. It is the Famicom original, again, but with save states, because, you know, Famicom Mini has save states built in. And now, we were at a most modern port. The Nintendo Switch release. That's the 2017 version. That's redrawn from the 2004 version. Huh. So those are all the Dragon Quest I versions I could find. I always found it weird that they kept porting the Famicom version instead of the updated NES release. I mean, the NES release is also really hard to play nowadays, but compared to the Famicom, nah, I'm good. I can't imagine playing an RPG with passwords. I'd rather play with ants. But we're not done yet, baby. Let's look at the other stuff I found. Now, these are just fan ports, but I'm still going to count them because they're pretty cool. The NEC PC98 appears to be a port from the MSX version. It was kind of hard to find any information about this game, but we got footage and we have a killer soundtrack. Then for the Sharp X68000. Damn, that name is badass. What can it do?
今、黄金のマスクがよみがえる。パーソナルワークステーション X68000。高解像度の自然色。CPU68000 の広大なアドレス空間。さまざまな音をそっくりデジタル記録。黄金のグラフィックスを持ったシャープ X68000。
Ah, yes, I see. Okay, so back to Dragon Quest. And this one just looks really good. Like, it is really well made. It seems it was made by Mitsuru Kamiyama, who now works for Square Enix and actually worked on Dragon Quest XI. So that's pretty dang sweet. Now, this isn't really a remake, but I'm gonna count it as a remake because it's the game, but new. It's like Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's just like that, 100%, no difference. Kenshin Dragon Quest, Yomegai Rishi Densetsu no Ken, or Sword God Dragon Quest, the legendary Sword Reborn. It sounds epic because you are epic.
伝説はこの剣から生まれてく。剣心ドラゴンクエスト好評発売中。
It's a plug and play game, based loosely on the original Dragon Quest. It's a motion-based game where you swing your legendary sword and swipe at enemies. But it works because you get a flippin' epic sword. It's also the precursor to Dragon Quest Swords, but I'm gonna talk about that later in a different video. Wink wink. And that's all I got for you guys. If you're curious about what my favorite version of Dragon Quest I is, I could not tell you because I only played the Switch version. Yeah. Bye.